evening, everyone. Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor, there you are, Pastor Todd. Please stay standing for our invocation. Pastor Todd Forrest of Fountain Hills Christian Center is here with us tonight.
Shall we pray? Dear Jesus, we thank you for the privilege we have of living in this wonderful city. Lord, I thank you for the leadership that you have put over our town also. I thank you for the people that we have as neighbors that we share with. And Lord, I pray that you would guide and govern the direction of our town, the direction of the proceedings this evening. Lord, we pray your blessings, even though we may not deserve them. Lord, we pray that you would continue to bless our community and that you'd look with favor on us as we endeavor to live our lives pleasing to you. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Todd. Everybody can be seated. Roll call, please. Liz?
Mayor Kavanaugh.
Here.
Vice Mayor Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Leger.
Here.
Councilmember Toles.
Here.
Councilmember Magazine.
Here.
Councilmember DePorter.
Here.
This is Liz's first meeting. Liz Burke is our new town clerk. I told her nobody ever comes to these meetings. All right, we'll start with our proclamation for Constitution Week. Whereas September 17, 2018 marks the 231st anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize this magnificent document and the anniversary of its creation. And whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. Now therefore I, Linda M. Kavanaugh, Mayor of the Town of Fountain Hills, Arizona, do hereby proclaim September 17th through the 23rd, 2018, to be Constitution Week in Fountain Hills, and hereby ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787. Candy, are you here? Candy Shadle? No. Okay. All right, if she does come in, she's here representing them. We were going to give her a presentation with this, but if she does come in, we'll just ask Bob to take a picture. All right. So let's go on to call to the public. Anyone? Liz?
I have no cards.
Okay. This is just called to the public, not any particular agenda. Just general. Okay. All right, we have consent items. We have 12, and I'm looking for a motion as listed.
So moved. Second.
Okay, and a roll call, please, Liz.
Mayor Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brown.
Aye.
Councilmember DePorter.
Aye.
Councilmember Toles.
Aye.
Councilmember Magazine.
Aye.
Councilmember Leger.
Aye.
All right, thank you, Liz. First regular agenda item, consideration of a budget transfer reallocating $850,000 from the special revenue budget and all remaining open space development fees to the 2018-19 capital improvement budget for the completion and final payouts of the Adero Canyon Trailhead project. Grady?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, the item before you is a request to transfer $850,000 from the special revenue budget and all the remaining open space development fees to this year's budget. As you're aware, last year the council awarded a contract to Blue Corps Contracting to construct Adero Canyon Trailhead, and they've been working and doing a great job. We anticipated we would have expended this money last fiscal year. The way that the invoicing has been working, and the fact is, we did not expend this money as we had intended last year. This is not an increase. This is just, in order for us to pay these bills that we're going to be anticipating, we needed to go ahead and get you to authorize the reallocation of this funding. So if you have any further questions about this, we have Community Services Director Goodwin, who may answer any questions you may have.
Any questions on this for Grady or Rachel? Rachel, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, Grady covered it very succinctly, thanks.
Any questions? Vice Mayor?
Either one can possibly answer, but are there any known change orders that we're looking at on this project?
There are several change orders in the works right now, and it actually is reducing our overall cost at this time. The final number is still
Good girl.
in the works, but it's lower than what we anticipated, so that's good news.
That's
We're in
good
the
news.
We are in the home stretch of completion right now as well.
And it looks nice.
It does, it looks beautiful.
Yes, in fact, I believe another week or two, we're going to be at a point where the Public Works Director will probably give a notice of substantial completion, and will, at that point, the contractor will just be working on a punch list of items to complete. But, no, we're very pleased with how this has turned out.
Any other questions,
Mayor, if I may.
Council?
Rachel, do you recall specifically how much in development fees is being used on this project?
I don't off the top of my head. I don't recall what the development fee total is, but
Finance Director
I would
perhaps
say
may
perhaps
remember.
Craig can. It's a test.
Councilmember Leger, total development fees were roughly $1.8 million. We have spent a majority of that. I believe there's roughly $500,000 left of the $850,000 is going to be development fees. The remainder is going to be out of the special revenue fund.
I think that's important for the public to be aware that when you look at the cost of the trailhead, that money was accumulated over years and sat in a special fund for years, which had to be utilized, and it had to be used specifically for this particular purpose. So I'm glad we're towards completion and we've got to utilize those dollars that were well earned over the years. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Any speaker cards on this item?
Bob Shellstrom.
All right, Bob, come on down.
I'm Bob Shellstrom, and I'm a resident of Fountain Hills.
Thank you.
Couple comments here. You're going to be voting very soon on a contract for the general plan. And I've been doing these things for like 40 years, and there's one thing I was looking for I didn't see, which I hope you will be questioning. The price came out to $100,000, and they
Can I
gave
ask
nice.
you, are you
This is
talking,
agenda item A, I believe.
this
8A.
is on open space development? I think you won the next
item.
one, B. The next one is B. You want the general plan amendment?
Yes.
One more to go.
Okay.
All
I'll
right.
wait for you. Thank you.
Okay. Any other speaker cards? No, then I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That's a motion by Councilman Leger and a second by the Vice Mayor,
That's correct.
just for Liz's benefit.
We'll just,
Okay.
we'll try to talk a little louder down here for you.
She's trying to get used to your
Yeah.
voices, so she knows who says what.
Okay, now we go on to 8B, consideration of professional services agreement, C 2018-075, with the Planning Center for Professional Consulting Services related to the update of the 2020 general plan in an amount not to exceed $100,000 for a period of 1 year with 2 additional 1-year optional renewals. Grady?
Yes, Mayor and Council, as you're aware, every so often, in fact, Bob's going to go into his presentation, we're required under state law to do a major update to our general plan. Our general plan is a strategic document that provides guidance to the council and planning and zoning in a lot of different ways, and Bob will kind of touch upon that. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Rogers, who will give a report on this item.
Thank you, Grady. Thank you, Mayor.
Arizona revised statutes require that the town's general plan be either readopted as is or that a new plan be adopted every 10 years. And due to the various amendments made over our current plan over the last 10 years, with the changes to the town's demographics and the development patterns, staff believes that readoption of the existing plan would be a bad idea. Staff issued an RFP for an update of the general plan on May 2nd, and 3 firms responded. The responses were evaluated and rated by a committee comprised of town staff and the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And the committee then requested that the 2 highest scoring firms come in for interviews, and both those were also evaluated and scored. And the results of the analysis clearly showed that the Planning Center had the highest scores in all categories and is the best qualified to assist Fountain Hills with this update. The staff is requesting the council approve this professional service agreement with the Planning Center in the amount not to exceed $100,000. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Questions for Bob?
Mayor, if I may.
Councilman Leger?
Bob, just a matter of clarity, in the agenda and for the benefit of the public, could you explain the two-year renewal? It almost gives the impression that the amount of money is extended over that time period. Could you clarify that?
The amount is not to exceed $100,000,
Okay.
period. The plan won't be adopted until the November 2020 election, so
Okay.
we're looking over a 2-year period. So just in case we have to carry over, which we will have to carry over the contract for a couple of
So
years.
it's just a carryover, there's no changes?
No more money.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilman Magazine?
Thanks. Bob, you said that this applicant was far and away better than the other 2. Can you mention any primary things that they said they were going to do that's different from the other 2 or that we particularly want?
Well, there are a number of statutory requirements for any general plan. So all the firms had the basic knowledge of what they needed to provide. So it was a matter of which firm would, I guess, be the best fit for the town, for our demographic, for our style of, the way the plan is laid out now, the way we may want it in the future. It was really almost a compatibility fit better than the other firms. But yeah, all 3 of the firms were qualified.
Was there much differentiation in terms of the costs?
No, not really, no. Maybe a couple $100.
I'm sorry?
Maybe a couple $100.
Really? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Bob? Okay, let's go to our speaker cards.
Bob Shellstrom.
Thank you. Finally, the right one. Thank you.
You're up, Bob.
One of the things I think we really need to look at, and I've read everything that's been put online, and having done these bid evaluations, is 2 things really stick out, I think really need to be questioned. The first is, what is the minimum amount we could spend and still meet state requirements? I read our RFP, and we asked for very specific things, but I believe we should have also said, what is the minimum to get the job done? We may be able to spend $20,000, and then now we're getting $80,000 in bells and whistles that we really don't need and will not add value. That is something I believe the council should be questioning. The other thing, is this the right price for this scope of work? We went to bid, we got 3 bidders. I read the qualifications, they seem like a well-qualified team. But the bottom line is this what other towns are paying? Looking at their proposal, they were talking about Safford, Tucson. They have a very large list of clients. How much are they paying? Are we paying disproportionately higher, lower? What's to really be determining that? So I think determining if this is the minimum we can pay for it and whether this is the right price by comparison and benchmarking is something a prudent board will do before approving this. I also have a question on economic development. May I make that comment now or should I make it later?
Is that for the next one?
I think it's C that I saw on the agenda.
Yeah, you gotta wait till the next one.
Not a problem.
You can come up again.
Thank you. Like I said, I really think the council should be aware of those questions before voting on this. Thank you.
Okay. Grady, would you or any of the staff like to address any of that?
Well, as we go through a process like this, we put out a request for proposal. In the request for proposal, we have what I call the scope of services. And I would tell you, I'd venture to say that our scope of services wouldn't change too much from what Mr. Shellstrom mentioned about other cities and towns. In fact, my understanding is the last time we did this was approximately 12 years ago. It's going on 10 years ago, correct, Bob? And so my understanding is we paid at that time close to $100,000 or even more. Do you recall what we paid?
About 95,000 last time.
95,000. So,
10 years ago, yeah.
I mean, I think we're in the ballpark here of what cities typically pay for this. Also, keep in mind, I mean, you know, Mr. Shellstrom mentioned, you know, that perhaps we're getting some bells and whistles. I'd probably argue that the bells and whistles, we just don't have the staff to do a lot of this internally, and that's why a firm is being asked to do this. We're actually, as you know, we're very lean staffed in development services. We have only the director and a senior planner that are at the level that would typically be involved in this. And so I think really for what we're getting, I think we're getting a lot of services in exchange for what we're paying. And it's very close to what we paid the last time we did this. So I understand concern, especially in light of our lean finances as a community. But I think that knowing that we don't have the additional staff that some of these other larger cities have, I think that we're getting a pretty good value for what we're paying. I wouldn't say it's a bargain. I'm just saying it's good value for what we're paying.
But thanks for going over that, Bob. We appreciate your comments. Any other questions or comments from the council, or I'm looking for a motion on this one?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, that's from Councilman Magazine and the Vice Mayor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good. C, consideration of contract 2019-22 in the amount of $27,000 from the Canvas Group for the purpose of assisting with a commercial, business, and retail recruitment campaign. Grady?
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and have our Economic Development Director, Scott Cooper, give a staff report on this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Welcome back. Last fiscal year, we entered into an agreement with the retail consultant group, Retail Strategies, for the purpose of assistance with the commercial and retail recruitment campaign. The amount of the contract was for $50,000 and was for 1 year, was for year one of a potential 3-year campaign. Over the last 12-plus months, staff has worked with the consultants and developed a solid working relationship with their team. The scope of work was accomplished. We had analytical and quantitative research, trade areas were identified, consumer attitude and behavior analysis, peer market comparisons and gap analysis. In-market real estate analysis was done. That's the boots on the ground work, where assessment of existing landscape and the local outreach was done. Property catalog and prospect lists were developed. 102 national retailers were identified in 8 categories. Connected with a targeted list at trade shows. We're currently working with 30 that have interest in Fountain Hills, and we're targeting local and regional retailers for expansion as well. Also done was a custom marketing piece, and a plan was developed with complete with implementation strategies. We contact developers, retailers, tenant reps, franchisee groups, and local brokers, and we make direct and indirect connections with those people. In late June, staff was made aware that 2 of the principals, and that would be the team that staff was working with, notified staff that they were leaving to start their own company, the Canvas Group. With their community knowledge and working relationship with staff, it's best to stay with this team and move on with the new company. The fee with the new company is also considerably less at $25,000, plus a $2,000 travel contingency. The fee for Retail Strategies is $40,000. In my report, I just got a new updated listing from them after my report to you was done, so I was $5,000 off with their number. So what I'm asking for is approval of this contract and continue the campaign not to exceed $54,000 over a 2-year period.
Okay, question for Scott. Councilman Magazine.
Scott, when the consultants appeared before us last, I asked them how would they define success, and I didn't get much of an answer. Can you speak to that? Have you spoken to them about it?
Yes.
What are the benchmarks? What are we looking for?
Well, I think, as anything, I think we can all relate to return on investment. The problem with that is return is never instant. The retail model for selection is typically 18 months to 3 years to get on their panels, to get on their plans, and to move forward with site selection and to land a potential retailer. So I think a good measurement for success is what's our return on that in time. And we all know that I think that the dollar amount is $1 million in retail sales is about $40,000 to the town. An example of that would be Wendy's. Typically $1 million in sales, it's $40,000 to the town. Ulta, the beauty brands, I guess let's call it, type of business typically generates about $4 or $5 million. So that's up to $200,000 in sales tax revenue generated.
Scott, you've done, in my view, an outstanding job, and I just wonder how much different what they're going to accomplish or do is different from what you've been doing.
Well, it is a network across the country of connections and tenant reps to developers to retail reps and retail companies that they have direct access to almost instantly. And of 102, we can certainly get that. It's just that it stretches the time out a little bit longer. And the experience of having an entire team working with us on this and representing us at 7 trade shows, all retail trade shows across the country as well.
Just one last question, Mayor. What's a reasonable amount of time for us to get a report on what they're doing, how they're doing, and so on?
With the new company, I would say pretty quick.
A few months?
I would say faster than that. I mean, as far as the good thing with this, if we do continue with this, we have that background and that relationship with them. They're not starting from scratch. They're hitting the ground running. So we would be able to provide something, turn around pretty quick. And I do feel that, at the end of 2, we'll certainly be able to judge where we are.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Vice Mayor?
So are you nervous at all using a startup company?
No, because I know the principals. They are 2 of the individuals that represented and presented their proposals initially, and it was a big part of the reason why I selected them and brought it to you in the first place. So I feel comfortable with what they're doing and what they're building.
And do we have a fallback plan just in case they have a falling out and the startup company is no longer around?
That's a good question, and I guess the direct answer would be no.
Would you mind visiting a little with them and seeing what they're, I know every startup business has full intentions of being around forever, but I would, and I'm not questioning your ability to judge the people, but I would like to know if there's a backup plan. I personally like the price compared to what we were paying.
If I could just jump in, Scott, if you don't mind, Vice Mayor. The Vice Mayor is bringing up a very good point. The key here is that their services are billed and paid as you go. It's a pay-as-you-go kind of service. And then the other thing is we're going to have the deliverables on a pay-as-you-go kind of service. So if there was some, they were to break up or go away or what have you, we'll at least have what we paid for up to that point in time. So, I mean, it's a valid point that you bring up. The good news is that this is the principles of the previous firm that was really what helped us decide to go with the previous firm. But you're right, this happens sometimes with startup companies. When Scott brought this to my attention, I wasn't quite excited. However, it made sense to continue with the principles of this firm because they're the ones that already know the town. They've already done the initial research. And the fact that they were willing to do a discount versus what we were going to pay with the other firm, I think really makes it all that much more palatable.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Tolis.
Thank you, Mayor. Scott, can you tell me what type of tangible results that we've actually experienced with businesses that have moved here and have contributed to the sales tax base?
As a result of our past year with retail strategies? Nothing yet. And that's, as I stated, the timeline for that, a typical timeline for retail projects to develop is 18 months to 3 years. We're 12 months into it, and we're a little bit early yet. And we're talking.
The last 12 months was really more of a research phase where they were trying to determine what our market was, our sphere of influence, correct?
Yes, and that
so
was
it wasn't, and then this year we'll be developing more of the strategies based on that, correct?
Correct, and that was the scope of work. It was, and that I kind of went over, and what we've got in our pocket now is a lot of research and a lot of information, and that's being disseminated now and worked. Like I said, we've had contact with over 100 companies, and we have 30 right now that we're working with, providing more information, and as they go through the decision-making process on their own.
Just a follow-up. When you talk about these businesses that you've contacted, and you have 30, what are the size of these businesses that you're referring to? And are you addressing, for instance, the Target Plaza as these retail outlets? Are you addressing the downtown? What's the target type of businesses that you are identifying in these 30 that you're working with?
We've identified 28 key properties and parcels, and certainly those are all our retail centers, Fort Peaks Plaza, the Target Center, Fry's, downtown. The areas where we have the vacancies, largely together, where we have the opportunities. Target's got the largest space contiguous as far as availability. So we try and fit with what can go into those spaces best. Obviously, best. You're not trying to bring a small retailer into a 30,000 square foot facility. So we're matching needs based upon our availabilities, and that includes drive-throughs for limited service restaurants as well, which we do have a couple.
Anything else?
I have a comment, if I can
Floor is
make a
yours.
comment.
Right ahead.
I just feel like we are, as a community, throwing good money after bad. I think that all of these retail outlets have their own self-interests in mind. They have control over the rental rates that they offer. The demographics are what they are. We have this false belief, I think, that there's a solution out there for our community and someone's going to find it and someone's going to bring the magic to this community. I don't see it. I think we are what we are. We have the demographics that we do. The retailers want to fill their spaces. At some point, they're going to realize they're going to have to either lower their initial upfront cost to get into these buildings, and the demographics are what they are. These businesses are looking at their cash flow, their operating expenses, and they know these numbers, and they know whether to come to Fountain Hills or not. I think we'd be better off putting a bucket of money together, and when a business wants to come to Fountain Hills, we have a little incentive as a community that if it makes sense economically, and it's a need for our community, we may be able to offer them some incentive to come here, and that would be something that would be in your toolbox to do that as our economic development coordinator.
Mayor, if I think there are
Councilman
state
Leger.
statutes that prevent us from doing that, Councilman told us. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Mayor.
There is and I certainly don't want to overstep my
There are plenty
boundaries.
statutes. We've been down this road before. If I have the floor, Scott, I have a few questions for you. After the first year of this contract, I don't think anyone up here was, overly joyful in terms of output. But it's my understanding that the output was creating this database, this information that now is being utilized in year two to market who we are as a community. Is that correct? So would you say, although you said there hasn't been businesses coming to town as a result of their work, when I looked at the scope of work, they met their expectations for year one. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so now we're looking at year two. We're looking at $27,000, which is less than we would have if we stuck with the original contractor.
Correct.
What are your expectations in year two? So we're not here, well, I won't be here, but other people will be here a year from now asking some of the same questions. So what are your expectations?
My expectations are much like yours, they're high. And with limited budget, and I expect return on investment as well. And that's why this is reviewed on an annual basis to look at whether or not to continue, if there's value. And there's a good, I can't make guarantees. I wish I could, but, so obviously there's a chance that, that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But there's also a good chance it does.
And-
So my expectations are high, and my expectations are to have something tangible, several tangibles, at the end of the year too.
And we've often talked about, I think Councilman Tullis had mentioned this, would it be worthwhile just to hire an additional person to your staff? By the way, how many folks are on your staff?
There are 2 now.
Yeah, okay. So for $27,000, I don't think we would be able to hire someone, is that correct?
Any volunteers?
Volunteers.
Unless Bob wanted to volunteer, for 27 grand, so.
That is unlikely.
One last question I have. So is there a timeline on this contract? Are we up against some, what's the timeline?
To approve?
Yes, sir.
No.
Okay. And Mayor, if I may defer to Councilman Brown, do you feel comfortable going forward without a safety net? You had mentioned that earlier. Are you satisfied with his response to that, or is this something we want to table?
No, I'm totally comfortable with the pay-as-you-go system that Grady explained to us. I'm totally comfortable with it. And total respect to Councilman Tullis, but I think we have to keep our spirits higher and our goals higher to continue to help bring businesses to town. I have all the faith in the world that a year from now we're going to be able to say, well, we brought 4 new businesses to town off of 2 years' work, and that would be a huge start. And I truly believe that it would be a mistake not to move this forward and let it go to the 18 months to 3 years to see if we can see a little return on our investment.
Councilman Magazine.
I think the council members know that I've been very careful and very hesitant to spend money over the last couple of years because of our situation. I note that just on this agenda alone, we're talking about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. $27,000, as far as I'm concerned, is almost a rounding error, and it's not going to take much success to get back that $27,000 in tax money.
Let's go to speaker cards.
Bob Shellstrom.
Getting your exercise today.
Yes, I am, thank you. By the way, I think Mr. Magazine, Mr. Tullis, Mr. Laguerre asked excellent questions, and some of those were embodying what I was doing here. But to add on to some of these things, the issue of payback period on investment for economic development is well-trod ground. Even if we haven't done it here, we should know what the community-wide expectation is. A lot of towns have done this. What has been their return? It's been my experience working elsewhere that you usually look for a 3 to 5 year payback in what you've done or return on investment. Are we getting that? I think in our budget, we're budgeting $350,000 for economic development this year. How much return are we getting on that? What's our payback for even having an economic development team? I agree that they have value. The question is, what are the metrics by which we measure whether that amount of spending is right and whether it's getting done for the community, what's there? One thing I might recommend taking a look at this is when you hire somebody to bring in business, perhaps there's a better way of compensating them than time and material, whether they fail or not. One way, I've been working with the school board, or annoying the school board, regarding their energy savings program. And what they're doing is they're having a contractor come in, and that contractor is taking a piece of the action. In other words, they say, we will save you $132,000 a year, from which we expect a certain cut. Perhaps in economic development, we might be better off saying, okay, you're going to go out there, you're going to develop this business, great. Based on the business you bring in, directly attributable to what you've brought in, we will give you a percentage of tax revenues, provided that's legal. I would think it would be, as an incentive for someone to bring in that way. That way, they can't just do the work, fail, and say, pay us. Basically say, hey, you did a great job, you exceeded expectations, you're able to get more money. That's what we do in real estate sales, real estate development, which I know you're very well versed in. And perhaps that might be a better way to proceed with it. The $27,000, I agree with Mr. Magazine that this is not necessarily a deal breaker. But the bottom line is, for every dollar, we should be figuring out the best way to spend it. And we really got to look at that $350,000 budget and what our returns are. That's about all I'm saying on marketing shows for what we have. To tell you the truth, I've talked to a lot of business people in town. I think you could probably learn as much as these people will be able to do as far as what our plan should be, our business leaders here, as spending a lot of money on a consultant coming in cold. I mean, this has been worked to death. They know what can work here, but they know what can't work here. Let's talk, there's other ways to do this, but we really need the success in these areas because these empty storefronts, they're really becoming an issue. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Mitesh, do you have any comment about that legality of that?
You know, it might be a little bit outside the scope of this conversation, but Article 9, Section 7 of the Constitution, Arizona Constitution, is known as the gift clause, or more appropriately, the anti-gift clause, which prevents the municipality from providing certain types of incentives to private parties and businesses. So any sort of incentive package would have to be looked at and evaluated based off of that provision and the 2010 case in Turkin v. Gordon, which covered the City North in Scottsdale, which kind of reworked our jurisprudence on gift clause for the last 50 years. So we are very extremely limited in the type of incentives that we can now provide. So it may not be as fruitful as we think it used to be 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Anyone else? No? Well, it sounds like this council has asked a lot of questions as far as really delving into this. I know I've talked to Scott extensively before the meeting, and I think a lot of other people have also. So if you feel comfortable with this, then I'm looking for a motion.
Move approval of the contract.
Second.
All right, we have Councilman Magazine and the Vice Mayor a second. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Is that an opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, that's Councilman Tolis. Okay? That's a nay.
That's a nay. It's an aye is a nay.
It's a nay. It's a no.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I say a lot of you are standing in the back. You know, we have a lot more to get through, so, there's seats up here. Please feel free to come and sit down. I could see just about 10, 12 seats. Come on and have a seat. Okay? Make yourself comfortable. Okay. All right, so now we're going to go on to D. Consideration of a cut-fill waiver request to permit an area of 2,655 square feet to exceed the maximum 10-foot visible fill allowance up to approximately 16 feet deep, maximum visible fills for the development of the back patio area, and to permit an area of 690 square feet to exceed the maximum 10 feet visible cut allowance up to approximately 14 feet deep maximum visible cut for the development of the front patio on a proposed new single-family residence at 16334 East Kyoto Drive. Grady?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, Senior Planner Marissa Mora is here, and she's going to be giving a staff report on this request for your consideration. With that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Moore.
Hi, Marissa.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. So as you know, this is a cut-fill waiver for both a cut and a fill waiver. The property is a vacant lot. It is located at 16334 East Kyoto Drive. So the 16-foot fill that they're requesting would be to the rear of the house. That's 6 feet additional fill than what is allowed. Maximum allowed is 10 feet by code. They're wanting to use this amount of fill to create a flat area in the rear to put a patio and a pool. And then the 14-foot visible cut would be between the house and the right-of-way, it's cut down, so it wouldn't really be visible, maybe from some certain angles, but it's going to essentially be hidden by the house. And again, a maximum visible cut is 10 feet, so this would be 4 feet over that. I provided some graphics for you guys, because really that's what this is about, is what is this going to look like. The property has a very steep slope. It ranges between 25 and 28%. And so on that kind of a slope, you're allowed to have walls that are a maximum 10 feet in height, but they must average 7 feet in height. And I know that the applicant, who is also an architect, she's designed her own house, and she is here, as well as Dave Montgomery, the engineer that she's been working with. She's really worked to try and reduce the massing of the house, and she's used the area, so this is the proposed house. I did print out this slideshow for you all so that you could see it, because it is kind of hard to see up here. But here are her retaining walls, and this is where the fill would be. The retaining walls, the maximum height of any of these walls is 7.5 feet, and that's to reduce the visual massing of what this would look like, so it isn't just 16 feet of fill put in. And then in my PowerPoint here, I just kind of try and show, you know, this is Kyoto Drive, and this is Kyoto Drive, and it's vacant now, but you can see there's quite a bit of slope on the property. And this, looking this way, is essentially what you'd see from the right-of-way. It will be visible from the right-of-way. And then this is the same picture, but instead of looking at the rendering, this is looking at the engineering site plan right here. You're looking from Kyoto over here, from Kyoto. This is the house. This goes down into the wash, same as right here. And then I went across the wash to Jacqueline and took a picture from a private residential property over here, looking at the area where it would be, where it's proposed, and you'd be looking at this area here. It's not really easily visible here because it's kind of behind the pictures, but this doesn't look any different really than any of the other houses in the neighborhood. It has the terracing.
Yeah, can you just stop on that one picture? That was the one that I had asked you about, because that house, that one that's right next to it, is all the way terraced down. That one you got up there right now.
Yeah, I was gonna,
If you could see the rest of it.
yeah, I was gonna pull this over for you.
Yeah. So this house, though, is only one level?
Let me get this one out of the way. Little editing on the fly.
Yeah,
here.
that's it.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, this one here. So, yeah, it is terraced down the hill, but they also
Mm-hmm.
have 30-foot walls because it's house, whereas the proposed
Mm-hmm.
house is going to have 7.5-foot retaining walls that you're going to see. So it is going to look a little bit different as far as massing, as far as the amount of actual building that it's going to look like.
okay. But this house is all one floor? Is that right?
No, it actually,
Or is it two?
she's worked, there are steps within the house itself to terrace
Okay.
it down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it isn't all just flat one floor. In staff's opinion, she has worked really hard because it is a very steep slope to make it look appropriate in that setting.
Okay, thanks.
So
Go
really,
on.
I just provided a lot of pictures.
Oh, that's great.
And staff is recommending approval, and as I said, the applicant and the engineer are here for questions if you have any of them as well.
Okay. All right, council, let's start with questions for Marissa.
Mayor, if I may, on the retaining walls, in terms of lessening the impact, thoughts of vegetation? I assume they're going to be terraced walls, a series of terraced walls, so I think vegetation, is there any discussion in that regard?
There's not, but it is very common, and she does show in her rendering vegetation in the space between the walls here, and that's common for development here in town, single-family residential.
Do we need to make that a stipulation of approval? Thank you.
Maybe we could hear from the applicant on that. Please come up and just state your name for the record.
Good evening. I'm Karen Otis, Principal Architect of Otis Architecture. First, I just want to thank you so much. I'm very excited to be moving to this town and actually opening an office here. So a lot of talk about the commercial space. That's one of the reasons I'm here, as well as this, is to lease some space. So yes, each of those retaining walls are actually planters. So they're planters on every level, and we plan on having some succulents, et cetera, some of the natural the home is really meant to kind of nestle into the hillside. We are using rammed earth walls, so we're taking dirt. We really want that organic feel to it, so that it doesn't stand out. It really is supposed to be nestled in. It is an incredibly steep lot. And so the minute we walk into the entrance, we step down like 5 steps. Dining room, we step down. We continue to step down often. It is mostly a single story. There is one room above the master, but really we've taken every effort we can to create that kind of cascade down the hillside.
Thank you. Councilman Tolis?
I would just say I reviewed these plans. I think it looks fantastic. I think it's a beautiful design, and my brother's an architect as well, and this is the perfect layout for that particular lot. And we're going to have to look at a lot of these lots in town and make accommodations in order for a beautiful designs like this to be built. So I think it's great. Great job.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Anyone else? Vice Mayor?
I don't know if the council can be a architectural review committee. I too will compliment you on your design. I thought did a nice job with the walls. I like the house, and I will go ahead and extend Councilman Tullis's thoughts, because the lots that are left to build on in Fountain Hills are very similar to this. The majority of the lots in Fountain Hills are extremely steep, and I think that the council is going to have to become fairly well read on what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And I mean, I truly think you've done a nice job with this. It's against all the codes and ethics that we've worked on for the last 25 years in Fountain Hills. But again, because of the lots being steep like this, I think we're going to see more requests similar to this. So with that being said, I would make a motion to approve.
Please do.
Second.
Okay, a motion for the Vice Mayor and a second from Councilman Tolis. Did we have any speaker cards on this?
No.
All right, any other questions on the motion?
Just, Mayor, if I may, just a comment. I would agree with Councilman Brown, having been around for a while, and there's certain lots that are remaining that are going to require some flexibility. And so that's basically what you're talking about, is flexibility. However, at the same token, my expectation for the council as well as myself is that folks are making an effort to mitigate the impact. And I think in this case, that has occurred. So thank you, Mayor.
Well stated.
All right, I have a motion and a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Welcome to Fountain Hills. Hey. They want to know if you have a dog. Karen, do you have a dog? She has a dog. Okay. All right, we're up to E, consideration of approving a grant application request to apply for the Game Time Playground Matching Funds Grant up to $50,000. Grady?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, as you recall, we had quite a bit of discussion through our annual budget process when we got to the capital improvement program budget. In particular, we had the staff was attempting to rehabilitate Four Peaks Park with playground equipment in the budget. And as the Community Services Director committed to at the time, we would attempt to leverage grant money to make that money go further. In fact, I believe we submitted 2 grants, correct? One was for the manufacturer of the playground equipment we intend to buy, and then
Correct.
was it the Tourism Sports Authority as well, or
We
we're
haven't
off
gotten
cycle on that
yet,
one?
But we did the Diamondbacks.
Diamondbacks,
Yes.
okay. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the Community Services Director to give you a little bit of an update of what we're trying to do here.
Thank you, Grady. Yes, this is grant number 3 that we are after. And it is all in a means to extend our funding as far as we can make it go. And this year, we do have a $200,000 budget in the CIP to begin the renovations over at Four Peaks Park. We recognize that that can only take us so far, and so we are trying to leverage that into additional funding. Part of that is playground equipment. What we were hoping to do is leverage our current funding into additional playground equipment so that we can use the remaining funds for the actual installation, the infrastructure around it, the demolition of the site, the ground, the wood fiber and other supporting elements that you have to have as part of this installation. So with your permission, we would like to seek a grant through Game Time, which is another vendor. What this would really be focused on is what we call our tot lot, our 2 to 5-year-old playground. The previous application that we submitted through Compan was focused on our older demographic, our older 5 to 12-year-old playground. We did receive word that we were considered a runner-up in that grant, so we did not receive the full $50,000 funding, but we did receive a generous discount on supplies. So we'll be looking at how, if and how we can leverage that into making that go as far as possible.
Okay, I know Councilman DePorter and myself, we're really excited about something happening at Four Peaks Park.
We are as well.
It's a great neighborhood park. Most of our young families live around that park, and it's been kind of the last one that we've been able to rehabilitate. So I remember how hard it was just for us to get the old bus barn down, and that was a big step. And so now we're actually hopefully going to be replacing the play equipment and doing lots more for the neighborhood. And Back to School Bash was a big success right in that park.
It was.
And you could see how many kids came to that, and most of them all live in the neighborhood. Councilman DePorter, did you want to comment?
I would just echo, thank you, Mayor, the mayor's statements. I mean, that's, the park has received some attention from you all recently, and it's been great. Definitely you can tell from the neighbors leveraging it even more. It's great. Our fire department does their drills out there, so I don't think you have to water the grass anymore. It's very green. I asked them about that if we're still watering, and we're not, right? Because they're spraying it down every day with their, in the only place they can drill in town. So, no, I think it's great. You had a tremendous track record of success applying for these kind of grants. So I think it's great that you're going after them again for the town, for a park, a much-needed space. So thanks.
Any questions or comments? Any speaker cards, Liz? No. No? Okay, then would like to make the motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, Vice Mayor and Councilman Porter. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, Rachel. Okay. Number 9. Okay. Council discussion directions to the town manager, item listed below related only to the placing of the item on a future agenda for action, directing staff to conduct further research and report back to the council. Discussion with possible direction to staff regarding review of the sign ordinance and the impacts of non-traffic related temporary signage being attached to street signs and poles. Grady?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Earlier this summer, we had some concerns from folks who were involved in the search and rescue of lost pets in our town. As you know, we have a reputation as being a very pet-friendly community, and this organization, this group, has been very successful in helping residents find their lost pets. And we ran into a little bit of a conflict between our sign ordinance, which basically prohibits the use of signs to be put on traffic-related signs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to our Development Services Director as a staff report. We have some other alternatives or recommendations that we're going to suggest. And also our town attorney, Mitesh Patel, will also give some perspective on this as well, because there are some potential legal ramifications that are out there. However, I wanted to come across that the staff and I and the council and people in general are very supportive of what this organization does. And so I'm hopeful that what we have to say tonight we'll kind of meet somewhere in the middle to try to assist this group in what they do, because they are very successful and they do really help people find and rescue these pets when they've become lost. Then I'll turn it over to Mr. Rogers, who will be giving a brief staff report.
Thank you, Grady. Mayor, members of the council. So this discussion is regarding ways we can allow residents to put out temporary signs advertising that they've lost their pets. Hopefully, we can clear up some misinformation and misunderstandings about this subject. It's not just a local sign ordinance. It's all, can you hear me now? It's also state law. I can't turn it up. It's either on or off.
Maybe just get a little closer to it.
Okay, we're not telling residents that they can't put out lost pet signs. We're just saying they can't attach them to the street signs. No one is allowed to attach their sign or flyer, regardless of the subject, to an official street sign or pole. It's not only against the town codes, it's also against state law. The potential liabilities and safety hazards, as well as damage to the signs, that's obvious. And when we see one of those signs, we have to remove it. We can't simply adopt a new rule locally that differentiates between the messages that the signs contain. We can't allow lost pet signs, but then deny other types of temporary signage. Under federal law, our sign codes can't regulate signs due to their content. We can only deal with their size, locations, and the manner in which they're placed. So in lieu of doing that, I'd like to point out that there are some other options that are still available and talk a bit about what residents can do. And I know that the first few are not going to be optimal, but there are public kiosks in the parks that they can use. Newspaper ads, lots of storefronts will allow you to put signs in their windows. Social media seems to work pretty well. Like I said, we recognize that those are not optimal, but the kiosks, newspapers, storefronts, computer screen aren't necessarily going to be where or nearby where the pet went missing. So we came up with what we consider our best option, and that is our sign ordinance already allows for signs to be posted in the front yards of a residence in a neighborhood up to within a foot of the curb, with the homeowner's permission, of course, and subject to not creating some sort of a visibility safety hazard or anything. And if more signs are needed further away, we can work with the groups to get permission for that also. Contrary to some statements made on Facebook, nobody ever said lost pet signs couldn't be put out. We're very happy to assist and cooperate with residents when they lose a pet. We only said that they, and continue to say, that the signs and the flyers cannot be attached to street signs and poles. Those are off limits. We have a pile of confiscated corrugated plastic bandit signs. If you're wondering what a bandit sign is, I left a couple of them back there. Those are the signs that just seem to appear on weekends. I didn't want to hold them up to the cameras, so I didn't want to advertise them. We have a pile of those. Anybody that wants a handful can have some. We even have the wire feet for them. They can use those as backing, put them in their yards. They're more sturdy than a flimsy piece of paper. They'll stand up, and that helps the residents out, and it also helps us clear out some storage space. And that's pretty much all I have to say on it. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
I have a question, but I think this is more for Mitesh. When you say that we can't put the signs out on the corners in the right-of-way, all I'm thinking about is all those real estate signs that are out on the corners, too. So what's the difference between that?
Mayor, members of the council, a lot of this is governed by the most recent Supreme Court case, which is Reed versus Town of Gilbert. And in that case is where the similar issues were brought up, where the Supreme Court was evaluating Gilbert's restrictions on certain types of temporary signs, including real estate signs, political signs, and religious speech directing traffic to churches. And that's where Director Rogers is actually coming from, is saying that case came out and said you can no longer regulate based off of content. If you're going to have a temporary sign distinction, then all temporary signs must be treated the same. And we've been working with the town to start evaluating our sign code in relation to Reed's findings. And I believe town manager can address this as well. That's one of the plans that we have in doing an overhaul of the entire sign code to make sure that town of Fountain Hills is not faced with a similar type of challenge. Most recently, Scottsdale, Mesa, Queen Creek, a number of our local sister municipalities have all started rolling out and investigating changes to their sign code to address Reed versus Gilbert as well.
So where does that put us now as far as real estate signs go?
Real estate signs by our ordinance are allowed within the right-of-way, up to within a foot of the curb. That's also what I just said, we would allow these types of signs to be the same, because they're
Right.
both temporary in nature.
But according to
Well,
the law,
yeah.
what you do for one, you have to do for everybody.
Correct, but there's a distinction here because real estate signs are not being mounted to the town's traffic infrastructure or utility poles. So that is a slightly different band than we're talking about with the tent signs or A-frame signs.
Okay, so, but what about utilizing the right-of-way in the corners then, like the real estate signs
Yep.
do?
And Director Rogers may be able to address this, but I believe as long as we're not infringing on any site angles or site triangles for visibility, those would be permitted.
Oh, did you say that?
Yeah.
I didn't hear you say that. Councilman Magazine?
Does the code define temporary?
Temporary signs, yes.
Can you tell me what it is?
There are any number of temporary signs, but it's a sign that's not permanent. It's typically the signs that go out on a temporary basis. Real estate signs are a good example, A-frame signs, these bandit signs, garage sale signs, good one.
Does our code officer pay any attention to that? I know we only have one for the whole town, but
He does.
he does.
He can speak for himself, but yes, he does.
But Bob, I'm not really sure, at least from my perspective or the audience perspective, you sort of got it to the point of what a temporary sign is, but what is the duration, basically? We know it's not permanent, so I know that, but what is
You
the
know,
duration?
like a garage sale sign is supposed to go up and down on the same day that the garage sale's going. They're supposed to disappear. Real estate sign is allowed to stay out in front of the property that's for sale until it's sold.
So in the
different.
case that we're talking here, conceivably, what would you think if they were, this organization were to put up signs, how long could they be out?
My expectation would be that if they're gonna put out lost pet signs, then when they found the pet, they would pick it up. Or when they called off the search.
No, we're just trying to answer this question because there's been an alternative that's been suggested, and so we want to make sure you understand what the limitations and what the benefits of this would be. So that's what I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, once it's no longer necessary, pick it up. When the next one goes out, you can put another one out.
Great, okay, thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to just get the story straight. So I think maybe Roy could come up, because I know there's a lot of questions people have been asking me about how this all came about, and so I do have a couple questions for Roy. Hi.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Yeah, could you tell us, I know that basically we only have you, so it's complaint-driven. So before you took down the signs, was there a complaint that was actually lodged against the signs?
I've received communications from the street department on numerous occasions about signs being affixed to street signs, and that is considered a safety hazard, and as such, even without a complaint, when I observe a safety hazard in the field, I am obligated to address it.
So there was no person that called up that complained or anything like that?
In this specific case, in the past, I believe I had received complaints, but this last time in July, the only department that I received word from was the street department.
Okay, and I'm just wondering why they did that all of a sudden, because I know this group has been doing it for a really long time. They've been really responsible about removing the signs, and the signs were so small on the poles that I don't think they were really obstructing anything. And I'm not saying that that's legal, but I'm just saying that, you know, they never were bothering anybody before, so I was just surprised that we went and took them all down.
The primary factor that changed is the volume of the signs. I've worked for the town for 13 years, and in more recent years, I've seen the volume of these types of signs increase dramatically, where instead of just being on one street corner here or there, separated by blocks and blocks, they're literally on every corner of every intersection for several square miles or several square blocks. And as a result, it's definitely a distraction, and the distraction results in a safety hazard. The street department has indicated to me that they do not want the signs on there. I agree that it is a safety hazard, and both the street department and myself have removed those signs.
Grady, do you know, just from your own knowledge, do we know if we've ever had any accidents or anything related to having a sign up on?
Well, I can personally report that I have not had accidents because of these signs. But I do think that from a town standpoint, and maybe Mitesh can weigh in on this, there is some potential liability that we are assuming if we allow this group or other groups, because again, based on that Supreme Court case, as I understand it, we cannot draw distinctions between this group and any other group that wants to post on our signage, and maybe Mitesh, you can answer that.
Mayor, members of the council, that is correct. The gist of the Supreme Court case is if we permit one type of sign on our city infrastructure or town infrastructure, poles, utility poles, we have to permit any other type of speech to be placed on that sign as well.
And then it's, of course, state law it's already in violation of state law to do that on, traffic signs and signals and anything like that that is involved in managing the traffic in town.
Anybody on the council want to question, comment, weigh in on this? Speaker cards?
Yes.
Oh, Councilman DePorter? I'm
just,
sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I think we're all sitting up here nodding our heads because we all want to find a happy compromise here. We all love dogs up here, everyone? Yeah.
Cats?
And cats, we love cats too. We lose cats, and this group does a tremendous job. I recognize faces from Facebook and how active you are out in the community. So I just wanted to just verbalize that, and I think, and Roy, you do a great job for what you have to do as well. So I think we're just kind of in a place where we just need to communicate and see if this potential remedy is suitable for your group, and then sort of work back. I see already someone saying no. So we just have to just find the compromise. I didn't know if I needed to verbalize that, but I think you have a very sympathetic group up here who have all lost pets, who have seen the speed. I participated in some of your searches before. I remember the lab at the fireworks a few years ago. That was horrible, but I remember seeing a lot of you there doing it. So I just want to thank you for all of us for talking to me.
If I may make a comment,
Sure.
Mayor. I've previously worked for Maricopa County Animal Control. I've rescued hundreds of dogs in the years that I did that, and I've done my best to convey to all of the people involved in the animal rescue that I agree with their efforts. I just encourage them to find a lawful way of displaying the signs without causing a traffic hazard.
Okay. Councilman Magazine?
Roy, just a question. The political signs, we've had a few of those, placed along the roads, not on private property and so on. Could somebody place a sign like that not on public property, the same way you do political signs? For example, if you put a stake in the ground with a sign, could you do that?
Being that we allow signs to be within the right-of-way, as we do with political signs, my understanding would be that they could also place similar signs within the legal right-of-way. Typically, it just, whoever's property that right-of-way happens to front, generally as a courtesy, should be asked if it's okay with them to place the sign in front of their property. But under our current guidelines, I don't see where that would be a problem.
Mayor, members of the council, I would like to point out that with political signs, if they are too close to the corners, in the medians, in the right-of-way, the town still has the right to pick those up because they do pose a safety hazard in the visibility triangle. Otherwise, state law prohibits us from State law prohibits us from the removal of political signs in the general right-of-way if they're not creating a safety issue.
Everybody will get a chance to talk. Okay, let's go to our speaker cards.
Christine
Thanks, Roy.
Penna, sorry.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Chris Penna, and I've been a resident of Fountain Hills for 34 years. I am here tonight to ask the council to carve out a small place for lost and found pet signs in the current sign ordinance so that our search team can continue to save lives. We ask that we be permitted to hang signs throughout the community for lost and found pets on traffic poles and street signs for a period of 10 days per search. We propose dating our signs in the lower right-hand corner to indicate the date hung and the date for removal. All of our signs are done professionally with a consistent look and paper stock and are hung with care with clear packing tape which is easily removed without any damage to any signpost. We always remove all of our signs within 24 hours of finding a pet. Our team is a relatively small group of volunteers who jump into action as soon as we hear about a lost pet. We have all given freely of our time and money for gas, printing, dog treats, leashes, and way too many rotisserie chickens. We have funding, we have absolutely zero funding, and have collectively spent thousands of dollars since our inception. We search when it's hot, and we search when it's cold. Pals In and Rescue Pals plays a huge part in taking in found dogs until owners can be found. Let me run you through a pet search and tell you why signs are such an urgent matter. Please remember that our desert is a dangerous and hot place for a lost pet that is in survival mode and running for its life. If a pet is reported missing or found, signs are designed quickly and posted all over Facebook. Copy Express and UPS Store are both kind enough to donate signs to us. For the past 2 years, we have immediately begun to hang signs around the community without any issues or complaints from anyone that we know of. We have volunteers endlessly driving around, searching, hanging signs, walking through the washes at their own peril. One of our searches lasted 18 days. Signs really do help us rally the community support and provide tips and sightings which lead to happy endings. I have personally designed over 100 lost and found pet signs since I joined this search team. I have been on searches for most of them. Most searches have been successful with only a few pets that died or were killed on our streets. A couple were never found. I'd say we have over a 90% success rate thanks to our signs. We are asking the council tonight to carve a small, humane place in our sign ordinance that will allow us to hang lost and found pet signs throughout the community on traffic poles and signposts to show that Fountain Hills is truly a pet-friendly community. There are exceptions to every rule, and I am hoping this council will be the council remembered for helping save the lives of Fountain Hills pets. Remember that everybody in Fountain Hills is not on Facebook, but pretty much everyone drives or is driven around town and at some point can see a sign and reunite a pet with an owner. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chris. All right. Maybe you could just clap at the very end, because we got a lot of people to. Councilman Magazine?
Question?
Sure. Chris, can
Where'd
you
she
answer
go?
a question? Come on up.
Hi, Christine. Yes, there are exceptions to every rule except state law. Do you have any idea how many we're talking about on a monthly basis? Is there an average?
You know, sometimes we have no dogs lost in a month, and sometimes there are 3, or sometimes there are 4. You know, 4th of July is particularly bad. Holiday weekends are particularly bad because people have pet sitters. And generally, those pet sitters might let a dog out or leave the gate open, or usually things happen when it's not the owner taking care of the pet. But I would say, you know, in 2 years I've been in this group, I personally looked at my computer today, and I have at least 100, probably 119 signs that I have created for pet searches. And many of those, some of those were caught and found before signs were even hung, some not. But, you know, we all work. A couple of us are retired, some of us work, so we jump up and we do what we can to save dogs. We all just love animals, dogs, cats. We've even searched for a toucan, I think, one evening. But we've had searches that go all day and last till midnight.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
you know.
thanks, Chris. All right, let's,
Elizabeth Smith.
okay, just a reminder to everybody, this indicates you have 3 minutes. When it goes to red, your time is up. Just state your name and that you live in Fountain Hills. Don't give your actual street address.
Ellie Smith. I'm a resident in Fountain Hills. I'm also a humane animal rescuer and a dog trapper. I'm not a public speaker, so forgive me. I specialize in tracking and trapping lost dogs, and I think I wanted to go over first lost dog behavior because I think a lot of people think, oh, my dog's friendly. It's just going to run up to the first person it sees, so we don't need signs. In a desert environment, that doesn't really happen, especially when you consider that most of these dogs are lost through traumatic experiences, whether it be a fireworks show or a car accident or somebody leaving a door open and then they get freaked out and run. I was going to go over a bunch of other things, but they kind of related to the signs on poles, which I can understand that that's not going to work out. I think that we all just want a solution, something that we can place. And actually, the last comment on my paperwork was, if a community can approve a sign posted on a corner to sell a house, can we not come to an agreement on signs that save lives? So I think everybody here is open to different types of signs. I know that there are some poles in the city that belong to the town and don't belong to ADOT. So I think those could be an option as well. I know there's like the signs where people have sponsored part of the road or whatever that actually belong to the town and don't belong to ADOT. So I think those signs are an option as well. I think A-frames are a good option. There are some challenges with that. A, the cost, B, the time to get them out, and whose house they're going to be stored at, and if everybody else has access to them because they have to be in town to take them. It's important that we get signs out immediately. The other problem is there's really no time to ask property owners. I also think that's creepy. Like, I don't like it when somebody knocks on my door, and a lot of dogs go missing early morning or late at night. I think we've never had a complaint for our signs, but I think if we started knocking on everybody's doors, asking them if we could put signs in their yards, that's probably going to end up being a problem. And we have a really high population of elderly people that don't use social media. I trap 300 dogs a year, not just dogs in Fountain Hills. 90% of those dogs are caught because of signs. We very, very, very rarely get any kind of social media hits because the area is so widespread, and in Fountain Hills with the elderly population, they're not on social media. They don't see these posts on social media, but they do when they're walking their dog at night or when they're, driving to Target or wherever. So I'm just glad that we can have an open discussion about the types of signs. But like I said, I think the A-frames might be a little bit challenging, but I do understand why they can't be on poles.
Right, okay. That's good, thank you. I know I had suggested the campaign signs, that you could cover them and put them out. I'd only suggested that because I know a lot of people kept my signs when I was running, and they said, can I keep your sign? And I said, why? You really want to have my sign? That's so when I have a garage sale, I cover your sign with a piece of paper, put it out, but I promise if you run again, I'll put it out again. So, if you decided to use those, I would personally donate all the signs that I have left. I won't give them to my husband. Who's next?
Sky Smith.
She just spoke.
She spoke. She does, okay. Does she want to say that she's just in favor? Okay, you can also do that. You can also do that if someone says everything that you want to say, but you just want to say that you're in favor. You could just say, I don't want to speak, but I'm in favor of it. Okay? Okay.
Bunny Keller.
Bunny Keller. Uh-huh. it's nice to see kids here. We don't usually see kids here. Hi, Jack.
Okay. I'm a really, really nervous, but my
Oh,
name is
don't
Bunny
be.
Keller, and I live in Fountain Hills.
Okay.
And I'm a violator of the sign ordinance.
All right. We have a policeman in the back.
I just want to give you maybe a day in the life of a pet search team member. I happen to work in Fountain Hills full-time. I'm a full-time pet sitter. Everybody that I help, raise your hand. There you go. And all these wonderful pets, if one of them got lost, I would be out there in 1 second. So there happened to be one day that I was on a job, not a pet job, but I got a call from a friend that her sister's dog had gone missing, and she knew that I was on the team. So I left the job. I was able to. The people that I work for are wonderful. So I left the job, and I cruised down to Shea, where it was spotted it had gotten away. It was newly adopted, so it didn't have a sense of home yet. It didn't have a smell to go to or anything like that. So I went down Shea. I didn't see anything. I went back to my job, and we had got another sighting. Luckily, I was done with the job, and I was able to go back. So by the time I got back, there was at least 4 team members there, plus the owner, looking for this dog frantically. It was 110 degrees. It was sunny out. We hadn't eaten. We don't have any water with us, and we just go because we don't care. We care about the animal. And so we're looking, and nothing's happening. All of a sudden, we get another sighting, because when we're all on the search team, we try and stay on a group text so that we get real live feedback of where the animal is. We end up running, literally running off of the golf courses, where I'm sure we're not supposed to be, but there's an animal in duress right now. It's 110 degrees. And we get another team member sees it, alerts another team member, and she has eyes on it. We all meet the owner where the dog is going to be, and we end up flanking the dog, and the owner sits down, dog sees her, and immediately comes over, and we get the leash on it. Happy ending. It's stories like this that we strive for every single time. And I'm getting very emotional because I love animals so much, and I'm so proud to live in a town that cares so much about animals. So this topic is clearly important, and signs save lives. So if we can come to a solution that's good for everybody, that's our goal. Thank you.
All right. Oh, you said you were going to do that after. You lied. You said you were going to clap after. As everybody knows, we are designated a pet-friendly town. This council voted for that. We have pet-friendly patios. You can now take your dog with you to restaurants, sit outside with your pet. You don't have to leave your pet at home or in the car. And so we've done everything we can to accommodate pets, pet bags all over that are free. And so we're up here to do whatever we can to help you. Who's next?
Christine Shaken?
Christine?
My name's Christine Shaken. I live in Fountain Hills. I'm one of the members of the search team. I'm also one of the founders of Rescue Pals, and I work at Pals in Pet Resort. So basically, this is about found dogs. When a dog is brought to Pals Inn, it's brought there to keep it safe until it can be reunited with its owner. Pals Inn has always provided a safe haven for found dogs. Found dogs will be well taken care of. If we can't find the owner, they will go under Rescue Pals' wings, and we will take care of it, we will bring it to a vet, and we will find it a new home. But we always hope for the best case scenario, which is the dog is wearing a collar with a tag, with enough information on it, so we can contact the owner and they can be reunited. If a dog's not wearing a collar, we hope for a registered chip to find, which makes it a little bit more difficult to find the owner, but in most cases we succeed with that. If the dog does not have a collar and not have a registered chip, we will go to social media, an ad in the Fountain Hills Times, and signs. Signs in this case is, for us, still the best case to find an owner for that found dog. In this case, dog's not out and about, the dog's not threatened by wildlife or weather, but still we need to find the owner. And that's why I'd like to ask you, on behalf of found and lost dogs, please help us and figure out a solution for these signs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Jim Bruce.
Hello, I'm Jim. I'm a Fountain Hills resident of 7 years, this October 15th. I've been on the search and rescue team for 2 years now. Since my teammates have pretty much plagiarized everything that I had written down, and so I think all I can do really at this point in time is kind of piggyback on their comments. The signs are absolutely paramount to retrieval and rescue of these animals. And time is of the essence. We live in a hostile environment and plenty of predators out there. So we have to act very quickly. And as Christine and both Ellie alluded to, social media is great. However, it's not everything. There's a lot of people that are not on social media. Posts get lost. They get buried. You just don't see them. So pretty much everything I've written down has already been covered, so I just wanted to come back up here and, just kind of piggyback on all the comments. And as Ellie alluded, I think it's great that we're talking about this, and I hope we can find some kind of happy medium so we can get these dogs back to their families. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Next.
Christy Ivy Medeiros.
Hi, I'm Christy, and I'm a resident of Fountain Hills. Can you hear me? It doesn't sound like you. Okay. I'm going to try not to repeat myself or them. I just picked up on a couple of things tonight that was said by Roy and Mr. Rogers here. In regards to signs, we often move those signs where the last sighting of the dog is. So moving those signs quickly is really paramount to catching that dog. For example, the last dog, some of you might have recognized her as Callie. She got away in one area, and a lot of times if dogs are out for a few days, they establish a different home range. They may stay in that area, or they may move. And the longer they're out, we try to figure out where they're going. So the need to even move signs is important, as well as placing those signs. So if they're cumbersome or too big, that will pose challenges for all of us. Another thing was, sorry, my voice is shaky.
It's okay,
Another
take your
thing
time.
that Roy mentioned was that about signs on the street signs, but if you go to Maricopa County Animal website, it says one of the very first things you do is put out signs if you have a lost pet. Same thing for Arizona Humane Society. So I agree that there's probably a medium here that we can find. I would like you to consider the enormous effort that it would take a lot of us to move big signs, A-frame signs, the cost of those, because again, this is, all of our money going into that. Let's see. And you mentioned the success we've had, so that's all we want to continue. And that success has been, we've had that success because we were able to place signs and move them around town as needed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Laura Mepham? I am sorry.
Hi, I'm Laura Mepham, and I live in Fountain Hills, and I have searched for so many of these lost animals that you're hearing about here. I want to tell you a little bit, just two of them right here, because these two have my phone numbers on them. Really? How do I fix that? Closer? Okay. So I can vouch for that these signs work. I was the one receiving phone calls. She just mentioned Callie that was moving. Each time we got a call, it was that Callie was sighted the other day. So that didn't help me find her that day, but it let me know which direction she was traveling, let me know where to look. And I pulled signs from over there and moved them over here and kept them focused on where Callie was. We found Callie when 10 days later I got a call that said, Callie's in my backyard right now. And we responded. She was terrified, she was frightened, but the search team, with their experience, was able to coax her to safety. Dogs, frightened dogs are very hard to rescue and save and find. Cats are even harder. This is Baxter. This is my phone number. I knew Baxter because he was adopted from the rescue that I used to volunteer at. He was a very, very shy cat. He was lost in a neighborhood with a wash right across the street and coyotes. My heart was breaking. I actually put a reward for this one. That's my phone number, reward. Helped find this cat. The phone calls I got, he was all over the neighborhood. Neighbors were calling. The night I found him, we found him. I got 2 calls that night. He was about a block away from home. And then later that night, he was back in the apartment complex that he was lost from. Even with that phone call, knowing exactly where he was, it still took 3 more hours to find him and coax him back to safety. So these animals don't just come when they're called. They're frightened. They need coaching, they need coaxing, and they need a safe place to to make the way back home. These 2 were lucky, the best feeling in the world, going and pulling those signs back down, and we do that immediately. We are on it right there. All we're asking is that, like if you lost your keys, you lost a valued ring or a pet, you would go back to where you lost that valued item and put signs there and talk to the people there and ask, have you seen my item? Social media helps. Posting in general retail areas might not be so helpful. The format, let's work on a format. If it's these signs, that's fantastic. They are effective, that's my message. If it's A-frames or if it's another format, let's work on that. But just so long as we're allowed to continue to post signs, we promptly remove them, and let's keep our animals safe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Magazine.
I don't know if anybody has thought of this or can answer this, but my wife recently lost her iPhone. She almost had a stroke. Somebody told us, and I looked it up on the internet, these little tiles where you can find whatever it is you lost, keys, an iPhone, anything else. Have you folks looked into that? Can we?
You can talk to her after.
Okay. No, Mayor suggested I talk to you after.
All right, next we have
Next is Linda Bordeaux.
Linda Bordeaux.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. It's been a while since I've been here. Nice to see you all. Okay, so I think I heard a few things that could be solutions, and I'll give you a little background. Christine Pinna and I host 2 websites. One is Tip to Microchip, where we'll chip pets for $10. We'll have another event in December. Give Me Shelter Fountain Hills was an online auction that we did with local businesses where we raised thousands of dollars for Rescue Pals, Fearless Kitty, as well as the Rescue Group, which was a great success. And although I'm not an official member of the team, I do go out and search when time allows or help pull down signs. So what I'm hearing is it's a non-starter to put signs on poles, so I think we should move off of that. It's a state law. However, I did hear an excellent suggestion. Using the sort of H-wire shaped things that the political signs come on, we can put them in the right of way. It's a free speech issue, so you're allowed to do it. And everybody seems to know where the political signs are now. We've seen them pretty much ad nauseum. You don't need permission to put them up and down Palisades or Saguaro. The most valuable place to have them and why they put them on the signs is because you're stopped at a stop sign and you could say, oh, Skippy's missing, and you kind of get an idea of what Skippy looks like. I probably know as much about the sign ordinances as all of you because I went to the 18 months of hearings ad nauseum about what we're going to do with the signs, okay? A-frames are tough. People can't see them. I work with a naturopathic doctor, and it says naturopathic on 3 lines on the A-frame. You can't read it. Driving down the street back then, I could read them. Now, not a chance, right? So I like the idea of using the little H wires, maybe at stop signs, so that people have a chance to stop and look and see what's the pet, can I see the pet, and so on and so forth. That seems as though, am I correct about that, Bob? Okay. Second thing, the reason why there's so many more signs is there's a lot of people who are interested in helping the search and rescue. And as Laura had said, they do move the signs. It's a pretty active group. When they know a dog's on the move, they're going to try and concentrate in that area. Although I'm not part of the group, I do search and I remove signs, as I think I might have said before. But it's imperative to get those signs out there. Asking permission from people to put the signs in their yards is really not going to work. yes, it's fine to have them in storefronts and so on, but really it's the active nature of the pet and the sign that is the most critical in getting them out as quick as possible. So I kind of like that idea. I can't speak for the search groups. I guess they'll have to decide for themselves, but I think that's a viable way. And I would encourage every candidate who just ran, and even the state candidates as well, I'll put a call into some of them and see if they'd be willing to donate their wire pieces to this organization and see if we can't make that work. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Linda. You know, I was just thinking when you were talking about, you know, it's hard to go asking people, you know, if they could put it in their yard. You might think about having a database of people that already sign up and say, anytime anything's lost in my neighborhood, you can put it in my yard.
Thank you, Mayor. Good idea.
Okay. Anybody else? What? Oh, uh-oh.
Quick comment.
Oh, Bob.
That's basically the way she was describing as what I was offering up with those bandit signs. We've got a pile of them. We've got a pile of the wire feet. We're happy to hand them out. They can chop them up into smaller ones if they want to. If we're talking about those 8.5 by 11 little green pieces of paper, they'll easily fit on those. And they can put them within a foot of the curb, and they're not worrying about people's private property. Usually there's about somewhere between 8 and 10 feet between the curb and the property line anyway.
Right.
So that's what I was talking about when I was saying we can make those available. We can give them a starter kit already.
Okay, that sounds great. Who's next? Okay, good. Bob. Liz, next.
Paula Steffen.
Ah, finally, we're going to hear about the cats. Hi, Paula.
Hello, I'm Paula Steffen. I am a 17-year Fountain Hills resident, and I am co-founder of Fearless Kitty Rescue, if you haven't noticed. I just wanted to offer to the rescue organizations is that they do an amazing job, and I give them so much credit for what they do. And what we want to do at Fearless Kitty Rescue on the Avenue is have a we're going to put a new cork board in our storefront, and it will say Fountain Hills Lost Pets or something. We'll do something. And they can, the rescues, just come to Fearless Kitty. They can email us, or they can drop it off at our location. We do have a mail slot as well if we're not open. And we will post on the corkboard for 2 weeks. And then we also have 2 video screens. One is facing the street, and one is inside our boutique. And we will keep the postings, the flyers, up until the animal is found. And that includes dogs and cats. So, so we just want to be helpful. We understand that, I mean, we always post our kitties, obviously, whether they're fearless kitties, like Laura was talking about, or they're the public's, and we just want to offer that to everyone, and so that's why I wanted to be here and let everybody know. I will be here, and I can give you our cards, so that you have our email address if you want to do it electronically, or just come to our location. Love your mug. So again, I just want to be here to support everybody who is out in the desert looking for animals, and
that's great,
and be supportive of them. So thank you.
Thanks, Paula. This community just gets better and better, huh? Councilman Tolis.
Thank you, Mayor. In an effort to come up with a solution, Ellie Smith, Ellie, you are involved not only in Fountain Hills, but other communities with these efforts, correct? Do you have anything that you can add to what other communities are doing to address this issue?
Yes,
That'd
please
be
come
nice,
up.
yeah.
If you don't come up, then it doesn't get recorded, so we want everyone to know what you have to say.
So we've had challenges in other communities that have same CC&R issues with signs. A lot of them we've gotten temporary, I wouldn't say permission, but look the other ways. I really don't know how to say it. Communities have allowed us to put up A-frames, which have worked, or just large A-frame type signs, because they had the same concerns regarding the poles and the fact that they couldn't make the laws regarding the poles. They've let us put them on neighborhood signs that belong to them and didn't belong to ADOT. But very few have we ever gotten complaints from them. Usually those issues are complaint driven, and when it happens, it's very, very rare. Trust, I have signs all over the valley, everywhere. I do want to speak on the political signs. We have kind of discussed this in length behind the scenes, the logistics of those signs and how they would work, and I just realistically don't see how they would. They're all different sizes. We don't have the resources to print posters in all these different sizes that fit on them. I also think that we'll get a lot of complaints regarding them, because you have this yellow sign on top of this blue and white sign. It just is going to kind of look junky, and that's what I'm worried about. Then we're going to start getting complaints because of the signs when we've never had complaints regarding signs before. I do know that you can't give us permission to post on the street poles, but I would be interested in knowing how many signs there are in Fountain Hills that actually belong to the town that don't belong to ADOT, and whether or not we can get permission to post the signs on those.
Excuse me, if I may just jump in, it really doesn't matter whether it's Arizona Department of Transportation or town signs. The fact of the matter is we're prohibited from state law on having them on our own signs.
On any sign, so
Yes,
okay.
or poles or utility poles. So, and there's even case law from courts that actually have upheld that as well. So that's kind of the position we're in. But I do think, the staff and I would be willing to work with your organization to see if maybe we can help you come up with some standardization, so that maybe the signs, when people see a sign, they know it's your organization and it's a missing pet. And I think that you can brand something like this that actually stands out. When people see something like that, they know it's not a junky sign. In fact, you can almost have those printed up and have it just say lost dog, and then you put the sign
so
right on there.
This is actually behind the scenes what we've done a lot of designing, where we could do nice A-frame style signs that have kind of a pouch in the middle that you can just add.
So like the sign that you saw Councilmember DePorter hold up, the back sign, that's a kind of a standard size dimension, the back side of it. And so you would probably find that we have a lot of those, and that would be the one side that you can customize, and then maybe there's some foam core or something that goes on the other side, so you don't see the political sign or the for sale or whatever on the other side. So I'm very hopeful with what I'm hearing tonight, that we can come to some resolution that satisfies your needs.
Correct. I was going to ask if there was a type of mediation of sorts that we could have, where we could all sit down and bring different options for signs and talk about them as a group, because I feel like it's more complicated than just a yes or no at this point. I do think that we could get together and we could bring different types of signs and discuss them and see where we can get regarding it that way.
We can do that.
Yeah, and I know Mr. Rogers came across that he wasn't in favor, but I think we were all hearing from him when he first started talking about these temporary signs. It's exactly what the mayor had mentioned. So I think we're all kind of on the same page. I agree. I think we can come to some resolution and come up with something that is satisfactory to your organization and meets the town's needs.
I agree. Thank you.
Councilman Tolis, did you have something?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I was just going to follow up on what Ellie had mentioned previously in regards to the sponsorship signs that are throughout the town on the major corridors, and whether there would be any reason why we couldn't give permission for that to be used as of right now. And then as we continue to move forward, we can look at maybe some other signs. I think those are made of pretty inexpensive material. Bob, is that right?
Justin?
Are you referencing the Adopt a Street signs?
Yes.
Councilmember Tullis?
Yes.
They are made of the same material as all of the rest of our signs, which is aluminum.
The pole,
The pole is made of steel, just like the rest of them. All of the poles are identical with the exception of the style. We have square ones and we have C-channel.
would there be any, Mayor, would there be any reason why, do we have a surplus of those poles somewhere in town that you might be able to install more of those poles at intersections that we can utilize for this type of a need?
We do not have a surplus of.
And I think that's a clever way that you're mentioning this, Councilmember Tullis, but when it comes down to it, we can only use town signs for town purpose or governmental purpose. And so that's part of the issue. Under the Supreme Court case, we would offer to this group, then all of a sudden, we'd have to make it available to anybody else that wants to do the same thing. So this other alternative that we've suggested tonight is one that is available to other commercial and non-commercial uses for the same thing. So if we had town poles, we would be facing the same issue that we currently face.
Okay, let's go on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next
Chris
speaker.
Seigan?
Remember, if everybody has said what you want to say, you can just say you're in agreement. Yeah, I'm in agreement. Okay, he's in agreement.
He's the hero.
That's a guy for you.
Mayor, can I,
Councilman
just to follow the logic, to town manager, if they're allowed to use those signs, and you're indicating that that's okay, isn't everyone able to use signs like that? And it's followed the same logic that you just said?
That program that we just talked about is a town program, the Adopt a Street program. Those are town signs produced by the town, and those are poles. So that's infrastructure of the town being used for a town program. So if we were to open that up to other entities or other users, we're going to be facing the same issue. We cannot allow town property to be used by other groups of people. Otherwise, you're going to get someone that wants to do a windshield repair that you remember seeing those all earlier this summer,
everywhere.
Plastered all over. We would have no ability to regulate and say no. It would be really the Wild West here of signs. And so we're trying to come up with something that's, a happy medium.
Okay, next.
Alonzo Shattuck?
Al. All right, Al agrees. Next.
Jerry Hensel?
Jerry Hensel agrees.
Deborah Nolan?
I'm sure Deborah's got something to say. Come on. In case you don't know Deborah single-handedly got the legislature to pass a bill that you can break a window to save a pet in a hot car.
Okay, my name is Deborah Nolan. I'm the founder of Don'tLeaveMe.org. It's a civic engagement project that my students, the college students that I teach, hostages that they are, must engage in civics. And I picked animal advocacy because no 18 to 24-year-old likes their little brother. I was invited to come out here by people on the crazy Facebook page, but it makes me wonder, when I started Don'tLeaveMe.org, this town embraced us first. The mayor sat for the Take the Pledge. All the council people sat to take the pledge. The Phoenix Fire Department out here took the pledge to love them, don't leave them in a hot car. So I'm kind of thinking that through this experience, I've learned this adage that the true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable, or the greatness of a nation can be judged by the way its animals are treated. This town treats their animals with a value I've never seen in any other town, because this town has a lot of people whose animals are their only living, breathing family. So this issue is personal to me as well as the whole town. But I have a question, because as I've been listening to you guys, I'm wondering, in Section 6.07 General Regulations, it says, no sign, including a temporary sign or sign structure, shall be erected or placed in a manner that would obscure vehicular visibility at any location whereby the position, the shape, or the color of the sign would obscure that sign. I've never seen one of these signs bright red with 8 sides. or it would confuse people. But then that's C, but if you go up to B, it says, no sign other than an official traffic sign or singular sign shall be erected when the lines of any street or public right-of-way are obscured, specifically, this is very tiny, in a manner that would obscure the visibility again. But it says here at the end of B, 607.B, you can no sign other than an official traffic sign or singular sign shall be erected within the lines of any street or public right-of-way unless specifically authorized herein, authorized by other town ordinances, or permitted by special town authorization. So we're allowed to put the signs. My question is, we can't put them on the stop signs, but it kind of contradicts because the little signs that I've ever seen don't obscure the stop sign. It's smaller. And when I saw one for the first time, I actually came to a complete stop, stopped, read the sign, and kept going. And I watched that intersection, and I know I stopped. But nobody violated the traffic because they were busy reading the sign. So my question is, if you guys say it's okay, can you put them on the little bottoms of the stop signs? If not, can you have a special stake that has these signs that you just stick in the ground in front or on side because they're not obscuring the sign itself? So that way the people can hurry, print one out, stick it on a stake, and then stick it right where people see it versus posting it on the signs. Because calling people, one of the things I like about this town is you guys quadrant the city, you go out in groups, because wild cats will eat your dog before your dog can be found, so you gotta hurry. But my question is, can you do that? Can you make just a stake, like a little stake with a little sign, and put it right in front of the stop sign? Because it's not the size, color, or shape, and it's not obscuring the vehicular visibility to that place. That's my question. Because I think that's an alternative, a fast one. And it doesn't have to be any particular shape, size, or color as long as it doesn't match the stop sign.
Bob is going to answer that question.
And I think you should let them hang the damn signs on the stop signs. Who cares?
Bob, I will escort you home.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I
Yes. You can do that.
Sure.
These
That's
are
basically
very
what
similar to the real
I'm
estate
proposing.
signs that we see all over town as well.
What I've been proposing with those wire signs.
Yeah.
But she mentioned specifically a stake, so you know, the wooden stakes or
Yeah,
whatever.
wire
they
signs or
kind of-
whatever.
Stakes, the only thing with
Small sign.
stakes is it's going to be pretty hard to get through this ground.
The wire frame.
Yeah.
Mayor, Mayor, that's exactly why I asked Justin whether we had those stakes that we use for these signs for the sponsorships, because those would be the perfect type of sign that would be permanent, and you can put them around that you can
Permanent sign
utilize
is
them.
different. And that's going to be a little more work actually to have them install, but also then to put the sign on,
Yeah, we
take it
can't
off.
do that.
Where a wire frame, you stick it in the ground, you pull it out, you move it down the block like they're talking about.
Yeah.
I think that's a workable.
We can't do that because then it's government money being used for the polls. Councilman Porter.
Just a quick clarification question for Mitesh. So Ms. Nolan just gave me some hope, like, is what she just said true, that as a council, we could say, I don't really care that they're on stop signs?
Hmm.
Ordinance also says that you can give special authorization in that same ordinance, C or B says that you can give special authorization for that type of sign. And it also says somewhere in your ordinances are 35 pages long for this sign.
Yeah, that's government. We're going to let Mitesh answer that.
But it says that.
Yeah, they can't hear you from back there. But let me let Mitesh answer that, okay? Because he knows what you're saying, our attorney.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you, Mayor.
No, you don't have to.
Members of the
He knows what you said.
I wanted to say that there's a 10-day window most everywhere about the amount of time you can keep the signs too. So there is a time frame even in your ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Yes, we do have a municipal ordinance that says no signs on our city traffic infrastructure. But as Bob Bob pointed out, that's also reflective of the state ordinance. So while we may be able to give permission, and we'll talk about permission here in a second, we don't necessarily can give permission to contradict a state statute. But with respect to permission, I think one of the items that needs to be kept in mind is with the idea of non-content-based discrimination. Whatever we do here, and we all agree that these signs are a good cause, and we actually want to be able to assist finding lost pets, but we're going to have to be able to provide that same level of right and circumstance to anybody that wants to put a temporary sign. So the car wash guys, of the homemade service, the sell your property to me people that you see on other right-of-ways in other cities, whatever we do, they may get to the intersection first. We're not going to be in the business of being able to say, well, you can have your sign, but you got to then pull it out when there's a lost pet. We cannot make that distinction. We cannot say only one sign per stop sign. So that's exactly what one of the purposes of these ordinances and statutes are, so you don't now have 10 signs on a stop sign or 10 signs clustered in the ground around a traffic signal or sign. So that is the weighing of the pros and cons that, whenever we do get together and we sit down and try to figure out what the proper solution is, that we have to be able to look at both sides of the situation.
Okay. All right, is there anyone else?
SUNY?
Okay, because I think we're pretty much saying up here that we're going to sit down with you. You know all the things we can't do. We know all the things we can do. So we're going to sit down and talk about what kind of a compromise we can make with you so you can put signs out.
What about the meantime?
That's,
Yeah, in the meantime. I don't know, I don't see any signs around. I don't know about you. Vice Mayor, you got the floor.
as long as the organization is moving forward on trying to find a solution, and I mean find a solution almost on a daily basis, working with staff or whomever, I would say that as traumatic as it is to lose an animal, and I think we've all experienced that fear of losing an animal, I think that we ought to be able to turn our head just a little bit. But, and I'm going to stipulate, if the council agrees with me, I have to say again, you have to put a committee together and work on it on a daily basis until we come up with an answer, because this can't go on because it's against the state law. And all the town needs is to have somebody run through a stop sign, have an accident, and come to us and say, well, that little pet sign caused that. And that's the fear, and common sense tells me that's not going to happen, but common sense also tells me that we don't need to be sued by somebody over a sign. And goodness knows, if we could let you put them up, I would say put them on every stop sign when the animal is gone. But we can't do that as a council.
Okay, say your name.
SUNY Roberts, Fountain Hills resident. And if they do get a car accident, that means they didn't stop at the stop sign in the first place. I wanted to address a couple things. Your law and ordinance, change it. Very simple. Put an addendum. Right? And complaints, people complaining about signs, people are desperate to find their animals. There's always going to be somebody that's going to complain about it. It doesn't matter if it's going to be 1 or 10. So what? These people are helping these families find their pets. Let them complain. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next. Anyone else?
No, I do have cards that support the signs, but they did not want to speak.
Okay, just read their names.
Okay. Alana Eaton, Rita Frost, Rita Applegate, Linda Lull, Nancy Grallman, Angel Wilson, and Lori Bell.
Okay. All right, any other discussion from the council? I think we know where we're going. I think we have direction to staff.
I'd like to just propose to the council that, that staff comes back after having worked with the group and report back to the council, perhaps by the second meeting in October. That should give us plenty of time. I like to say 6 weeks, but we have a time period that we have to prepare the staff paper or the report to get on the agenda. So if that's amenable to the council, that should be the goal. So we will do that, and we'll work with Chris and maybe a representative of her group, and I would be happy to be involved as well, so we can come up with some sort of middle ground. And we'll bring back a proposal, hopefully by the second meeting in October.
Sound good? Okay. All right. Okay, we have nothing on number 10, so last is just a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You guys were all great. Thank you. Wonderful.
I think it's too bad